Welcome back to Fantasy Football by Committee, powered by Flurry Sports. It can be tough to win a fantasy league on your own, but at FFBC, we will work together to bring home the hardware. Hosted by Zach Bruner and the rest of the Flurry Sports crew, we will give top-level analysis, answer your questions, and, well, go off on other tangents.
That was after I tried to get ChatGPT to admit that 9/11 was an inside job, but it stood firm. It gave quite a few solid points that it was true.
Welcome to Fantasy Football by Committee. The show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Hello. Welcome back to Fantasy Football by Committee. Welcome to NFL Week 5. Every single Tuesday, late morning, early afternoon, we are right here talking about the best fantasy football waiver wire pickups that you can have. Later today, I might do a second stream or maybe early tomorrow talking about buy low, sell high targets. So definitely look forward to that. But we will just be going over some of the top pickups for you this week. And the show inevitably always turns into answering your questions as well, which is always great. So if you're watching this live, jump into the chat like dash over on Twitch. Thanks for joining us again. I'm glad to see you're back. But definitely just jump in the chat, ask any questions, and I will answer your questions along the way. If you're watching this after the fact, you can drop questions in the comments, or you can go over to the Fantasy Football by Committee Facebook group where you can ask questions to myself, other people you've seen on this show, and other people in the fantasy community. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's a link in the description. Otherwise, go to Facebook and just type in Fantasy Football by Committee. It'll pop right up. We are growing the community over there. But let's just jump into this. Let's start talking about some football. Bye weeks are upon us. And this is where things start to get a little bit fun, in my personal opinion. So bye weeks show up. People are panicking a little bit because a month, has passed. So if your team sucks and you have people on bye, you're going to be a little bit more, prone to trading, more willing to trade, more willing to make a big move. So obviously in my leagues, I'm sure in your league, since you watch our show here, you're not in the position to panic, right? If you are, let me help you out. But otherwise, let's prey on these people who are panicking. Let's trade for some of their really good players who have been playing well. Maybe we think they will play well in the future. Yada, yada, yada. Regardless, we have 4 teams on bye this week that we do need to take account of. We got the Cleveland Browns on bye, Los Angeles Chargers, Seattle Seahawks, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So a lot of fantasy goodness, I would say, especially wide receiver wise in those 4 teams. A couple quarterbacks who probably have been playing. Not very many running backs that you haven't already been, needing to adjust for. Nick Chubb out for the year, so you're not relying on him. Austin Eckler's been out for several weeks, so you've already have a backup plan for him. But then you got the Seattle and Tampa guys there. Also important to note, we do have another London game this week, which kind of is stupid. Jacksonville stayed over there, so they have back-to-back London games. Kind of crazy. They have Buffalo. So on top of, managing your bye week players, just remember that you do need to set your lineup early. That is another 8:30 Central tip-off. I don't think they're doing any Toy Story bullshit, but we shall see. Dash in the chat. 1 and 3 with Keenan on bye. That does suck. With Jerry Jeudy as my wide receiver. As your wide receiver too. Sorry. I think there's better days ahead for Jerry Jeudy. I don't think you need to necessarily panic, but I wouldn't blame you for looking for a better wide receiver too for this week. We can jump into some of the best waiver wire pickups. Just trying to process in my mind who the wide receivers would be who you may start over Jerry Jeudy. There aren't very many. It depends on your league, I suppose, but I feel like this isn't an amazing wide receiver waiver week, but we'll go over it. I want to start with Since a lot of the diehard fantasy people, I assume, are the diehard people watching this, the diehard fantasy people have made the adjustment to play over on Sleeper Fantasy. I would say the best platform for season-long and especially dynasty leagues. But they do a nice thing, the trending players. It's the past 24 hours, the players who have been picked up, the players who have been dropped. So the past 24 hours, recording this obviously on Tuesday, 10:15 Central. The number one trending player is a player I've already written an article for on flurrysports.org, so definitely go check that out. We got Jaleel McLaughlin, rookie running back for the Broncos. He's someone who has been mentioned on the show a couple times, so for the people who are saying he came out of nowhere, he's been at least on our radar. However, hopefully you're not like me, because I ended up dropping him before this week because I needed a tight end, and I picked up and played Jonnu Smith. Fantastic call to play Jonnu Smith. Terrible call to drop him. So I'm going to be trying to get him back. He's the number one most trending player, picked up in nearly 900,000 leagues over the past 24 hours. We'll get into that a little bit more. The Javonte Williams injury may not be super serious, but Sean Payton loves this guy, and Sean Payton plays favorites. Number two is a player, obviously, I talked into exhaustion in the training camp and preseason. Michael Wilson, rookie wide receiver for the Cardinals, picked up in nearly 600K leagues. He is a very good player. He is what somewhat different play styles, but he is what people think Marvin Mims is. He is going to be fantasy relevant the rest of the year. Very little competition. I think Michael Wilson's a very good football player as long as he stays healthy, which was his issue coming into the draft. He should be good. Number three most picked up player is a streaming defense. It's the Detroit Lions. Lions play the Panthers this week, so that's a good choice. Number four, CJ Stroud, playing the Falcons. Obviously, Texans quarterback, rookie quarterback. CJ Stroud's looked great. Rostered in 55% of sleeper leagues, it's saying now. So if you're in need of a quarterback this week for a bye week fill-in and CJ Stroud's available, by all means, go and get him. Jonnu Smith, number five. He is playing the Texans this week. Jonnu Smith has been utilized pretty heavily the past 3 weeks, and I think that's going to continue. Since he's such a good blocker, he's going to be on the field for the Falcons. Number six, Jake Ferguson. Shout out Wisconsin product. Dallas Cowboys tight ends, number six, the sixth most picked up player. He has gotten a pretty well, he's got a pretty good hold on that starting tight end job for Dallas. Number seven, Josh Dobbs, quarterback for the Cardinals. Number eight, Washington Commanders defense, playing on Thursday Night Football against the Chicago Bears. That does look like a good choice there. Number nine most picked up player, I'm kind of surprised. It's Khalil Herbert, running back for the Bears, owned in only 66% of leagues. That kind of shocked me. He must have been pretty dropped the past several weeks. Rightfully so, I suppose, but go check and see if he's out there. And then number 10 is Jameson Williams. His suspension reduced because of they revised the gambling policy or whatever. They've actually made it more strict, but due to a clarity issue and all that, his suspension was reduced 2 games. So Jameson Williams is due back this week. By all accounts, I believe he is healthy enough to come back. Obviously, he got hurt in the preseason, but he should be ready to come back. A lot of hype surrounding a player who has one career catch in 6 games. 6 games, 9 targets, 1 catch, 1 touchdown. 6 games. Obviously, great college player, and he is getting extremely hyped up. Spoiler alert, he may be a sell high candidate for me before he gets a second catch in the NFL. But we shall see. Really quickly, other players who are trending upwards on Sleeper. We got Romeo Doubs, Dolphins defense, Cole Kmet, Zach Ertz, Brandon Maher, Baltimore Ravens defense, Ronnie Rivers for the Rams running back, Mitch Trubisky obviously filling in for Kenny Pickett. Nico Collins apparently wasn't owned in that many leagues. It's kind of crazy. Go check and see if he's out there. Wan'Dale Robinson, 27th most picked up player. That should be more. I'm a big Wan'Dale Robinson fan. I understand there's a lot of mouths to feed in that mediocre Giants offense, but I think Wan'Dale Robinson's the most talented receiver and overall offensive weapon they have on that roster, not named Saquon Barkley. So go check him out. Most dropped players, we have the Chiefs defense number 1, Browns defense number 2, Browns on bye, Cincinnati defense number 3, Steelers defense number 4, Josh Kelly number 5, obviously on bye, and Eckler is expected to come back after the bye. Pat Freiermuth, who's expected to miss some time, and he's been playing shitty. Daniel Jones after last night, Donald Parham, Kareem Hunt on bye, hasn't done anything yet, so a lot of players to drop. Roschon Johnson, the 14th most dropped player. I think that is somebody you can pick up and stash. We are in a results-oriented business with very, very little patience. Everyone's saying, oh, Roschon Johnson's the guy. He looked so good week 1. That means he has to get the most snaps, the most touches, the most everything going forward, and that just didn't happen. And I do think he's the most talented running back. It doesn't mean he needs to get the touches and everything right away. He already leapfrogged Deontay Foreman, which I think is a big deal, and I think he's a great stash. He could be a buy low guy that we talk about later this week as well. Dash, should I pick up Mims or Jameson? I would pick up Jameson, even though I just did kind of just shit talk him a little bit. Jameson Williams, obviously incredible college player. And I think this Lions offense, obviously this isn't a bold take, is much better than the Broncos offense. I don't think there is a massive threat at wide receiver 2 for Detroit. I think, Josh Reynolds has been playing pretty good. I'm a Khalif Raymond fan. I think he's pretty good. Marvin Jones has been terrible. So he has a chance to emerge and solidify himself as being I would call him a 4 to 6 target guy per game, which may be all you need. I just think the hype on him has gone too far. Everyone thinks he's going to come in and be incredible. So that's why he's a sell high guy for me before he has a chance to let anybody down. But I do think he's better than Mims. I don't understand the Marvin Mims hype. People were going crazy last week. I made a video saying to leave Marvin Mims on the waiver wire. I got shit for it, and look what happened. So yeah, I would definitely be going Williams over Mims. And we shall see what happens. Ralph on YouTube, welcome back as well. Are we dropping Pat Freiermuth and maybe getting someone else? I also have Kittle. Yeah, you can drop him. Since he does have some name value, put a couple feelers out there to see if anybody else in your league actually wants him. They shouldn't, but if they do, take literally anything you can get since you are already considering dropping him. I think you can drop him, but if you can grab a couple pennies, go ahead. But yeah, there's plenty of tight end options that are better, including Jonnu Smith, who's widely available, we'll go over them in a second. You can get Zach Ertz, you can get Jonnu Smith. I would rather have Kylan Granson, I think. See what Jelani Woods' reports are this week. I think Jelani Woods is due off IR possibly as well. He's a guy with more upside that I'm willing to take a chance on his upside than stick with Freiermuth, who's injured and in a god-awful offense. And obviously he's your tight end too, so I don't think there is much upside with Pat Freiermuth. And Jelani Woods at the very least has upside. So if you're not starting him, give me the upside. But yeah, let's just jump into some of these. I'm going to be using ESPN Fantasy ownership the rest of the way here, just because it's easier to see, and they still, unfortunately, have the biggest user base. Certainly not my favorite fantasy platform. Not my second, not my third, but it is what it is. Like I said, teams on bye: Browns, Chargers, Seattle, and Tampa. So we got Deshaun Watson, Justin Herbert, Geno Smith, and Baker Mayfield all on bye. For the waiver wire article on flurrysports.org, I'm not writing it. Hunter is. He usually does a pretty good job. We look at players owned in under 60% of fantasy leagues, so that's what I'll talk about right now. And one guy who's still owned in under 60%, I don't know why, but Jared Goff. I think you can pick up Jared Goff and play him. He plays the Panthers this week. Panthers corners can't get picked on. The only downside to Jared Goff is that the Lions love to run it in the red zone. So maybe less of a touchdown upside, but especially if you're a Jameson Williams believer, and Jameson Williams very clearly is a deep threat, a big play guy. So, which is something the Lions really kind of are missing right now. So that could be a big boost to the Jared Goff fantasy value anyways. But regardless, bye week fill-in, Jared Goff is a great pick for you. I don't know if I want Stafford. CJ Stroud against Atlanta is great. He's only owned in 32% of leagues. I think he's a fantastic pickup. He has been very good. He is running that Shanahan-esque passing offense where really just make the read and throw it to the open guy. I think the Texans wide receiver core, I've been saying it for a while, is underrated. I think Nico Collins is finally getting the recognition he deserves after a monster week. But I think the rest of those guys there too are good. So I think he has a really good receiving core. I think the offensive line ahead of him is pretty good once it gets healthier. First few weeks, he's been beat around. That's because he's been missing guys up front. But once they get healthier, Texans are kind of dangerous. And I think it starts with that offense, which has been relatively efficient. He hasn't thrown an interception yet. He's lost 2 fumbles first 2 weeks, but hasn't thrown an interception. He is, making a big case for rookie of the year. That's for sure. And you can play him on your fantasy team. If you're just looking for a stash, we can talk about Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is a great stash. He's owned in 15%, 1.5. If your league has an IR spot, he is probably IR eligible for you. So it's not a bad pickup and stash at the current moment, especially if your team is sitting pretty good right now. Jimmy Garoppolo, I think he does play this week. It'd be on Monday. And, hopefully we get more news throughout the week, right? Hopefully you don't have to make that decision Sunday, not knowing Jimmy Garoppolo's status. But I do think there's a pretty strong chance he plays. I feel like he was making pretty good progress last week in concussion protocol. So I think he plays on Monday night. He is at home against the Packers defense. Packers defense is not very good. So they're going to get pressure on Jimmy, but Devontae and others should be able to get open with relative ease, I would say. So he's another good pickup. And honestly, if you need an insurance plan for that, if you're in a pretty deep league, Jimmy Garoppolo is the best guy available for you. I'm fine starting Aiden O'Connell against the Packers if you want to get both of them, or you think you can pick him up prior to kickoff if Garoppolo's out. I think you're fine there. I think you're fine. Who do the Steelers play this week? Because Kenny Pickett may be out. The Ravens. So it'd be Mitch Trubisky. I don't hate Trubisky, but I think we can all agree that Kenny Pickett is not the problem in that Steelers offense. So if Kenny Pickett's not the problem, why would Mitch Trubisky be the fix? So I'm probably leaving him. I don't understand the reason to pick him up. New Orleans, I don't think I need to go there. I don't need to do anything with New England. I don't care about Sam Howell. Sam Howell plays the Bears. I suppose there's value there. I just don't need to do it. You'll be fine. You'll have a fine week. If you need a bye week fill-in, I think Sam Howell is a relatively safe play. Just not exciting. But yeah, quarterback's relatively uninteresting. I don't think anyone's panicking and needing a quarterback fill-in overall. So I don't think we need to spend too much more time on that. But definitely drop any questions in chat if you have them. Let's go to running backs. Running backs, obviously, Jaleel McLaughlin, the rookie in Denver, is going to be the top choice. Like I said, I wrote an article about it. Javonte Williams, despite what all the Twitter doctors, right, reported. By the way, let's ignore them. Like, if we all ignore them, they'll go away. And I think we need to do that to a lot of people on Twitter, especially in the fantasy community. But Javonte Williams has a hip flexor injury, certainly an injury that you could play with. This is something I had to deal with playing. Not a fun one. Fucking terrible for a running back, certainly worse. It's that group of muscles that's activated when you lift your knee. So like if you're doing high knees or whatever like that, like you lift your knee straight up, that's the group of muscles on your hip there that are going to be activated. Certainly running in the style that he does, pretty powerful running, where he's driving his knees into the defender, essentially driving him forward. That's impacted. Overall power should be impacted. And there's a way to wrap it that makes it a little bit better. It's going to hurt mobility a little bit. Obviously, there's injections you can do. This is something that's going to linger. Like, that's the worst part about this injury. It's not something it's like, oh, if I sit for 2 weeks and it's going to be better. It's just going to fucking drag on and on and on. It's going to be super annoying. So that's why I kind of like McLaughlin, man. Like Sean Payton said, he wants his role to grow. He is a pretty good complement to Javonte anyways. And even if Javonte plays this week, next week, week after that, I think the role for the rookie is only going to grow. I don't think it's going to be big enough for him to be a reliable RB2, but I think he's a flex with upside every single week going forward, regardless of the Javonte situation or not. But if Javonte is out, obviously he's better. He plays the Jets this week. Tough matchup. Don't necessarily love the matchup, but he is somebody you can absolutely pick up and play. Yeah, that hip flexor injury, it's going to be talked down because people were saying it was groin. People were saying it was a hip fracture. People were saying a lot of things. So it's like hip flexor, oh, it's good. He's fine. It's a muscle strain. It's different. This thing's like a groin in the way that it's just annoying and nagging and just doesn't go away. So hopefully he gets better soon, but I don't think that's going to happen. Hopefully technology has progressed in a way where they can numb it, give him mobility, and somehow the power is still there. I just don't see that trifecta coming together. So if I'm a Javonte Williams owner, by the way, and he's ruled active this week, I don't know if I'm playing him. He's not a guy I'm cutting. He's probably not a guy I'm trading away because I don't think you can get much for him. Like, I think you're selling him low. And he's not a guy I'm trading for because I don't like this injury whatsoever. I hate hip flexors. So, yeah, he's a nothing for me, which sucks because I was high on Javonte Williams coming into the year. Really quick, and Freddie, I see your question. I'll answer it very quickly. I just want to see when the Broncos bye week is. Not that 1 week of nothing will help him a ton, but this could give us a little bit of a better picture on his timetable if they want to be super, super conservative. Bye week 9. So it's not like he's going to sit out 4 weeks with this. That makes no sense. I think, we'll see. I was going to say, I think the Broncos feel like they can beat the Jets. I think Sean Payton is arrogant enough to think he can beat the Jets with his hand tied behind his back. But after last week against Chicago, who the hell knows? I could see him sitting 1 week, coming back on a short week, playing Kansas City. That's my guess. Will I play him against Kansas City? Come back and find out. My guess is I'm going to be pretty hesitant with him. Freddie, how's it going? I'm doing good. How are you? Would you trade A-Chain for St. Brown? In a heartbeat. In an absolute heartbeat. Like I said, if you were here earlier, I might do another stream today doing buy low, sell high candidates. I want to do one for sure. So either later today or tomorrow early, around the same time as now, I might do it. A-Chain, and yes, I'm going to continue saying his name that way. A-Chain's for sure a sell high. There's no doubt about it. Like, he is the picture perfect sell high. We just talked about all the zero RB people were talking so much shit this week because Raheem Mostert was an obvious RB1 the biggest start of the week. And then all of a sudden he doesn't get the carries. He wasn't that great. And A-Chain was the guy. So now you factor in Jeff Wilson coming back. And this backfield is just going to be too unpredictable. It's not going to be good. And on top of that, I mean, St. Brown is a lock-in wide receiver 1. Like, there's no question. So if you can get St. Brown, you have to do it. You have to do it. But regardless, Chan, whatever you want to say, he's a sell high. No doubt about it. Will he have other good weeks? Absolutely. Will you predict them? I don't know. Let's talk about some other running backs, though, in terms of pickups, other than the rookie in Denver, Jaleel McLaughlin. We got a lot of people flocking to Matt Breida, the backup, obviously, veteran backup in New York for Saquon Barkley. I don't feel the need to do that. I don't really care. I don't think you need to do that. Jalen Warren in Pittsburgh. Again, like, I understand that he has a week-to-week role. I understand that it might be a growing role. I understand that he's going to get touches. I understand all of that. It's still a terrible offense, like one of the worst in the league. And if the offense gets better, don't you think it's going to be because one of the best players on the offense is playing better? And that's not Jalen Warren. That's Najee Harris. Najee Harris is a better football player. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. If the Steelers are better and they're able to play with a lead, Najee Harris is going to be involved heavily. He's going to be running the ball. So I like Jalen Warren. If you're desperate, I suppose he can be a flex play for you, but don't care. I don't care enough. You don't need to do that. Justice Hill, people are saying, is a big pickup. You know who I'd rather go instead of Justice Hill? Who, past seasons I liked him. I think he's done. I just don't think he's going to be that great going forward. Obviously, I like Gus Edwards the most out of that backfield. Again, another take I got shit for. He's very efficient. He's just a good player. I would rather pick up Keaton Mitchell, rookie for Baltimore, who started the year injured, started the year on the PUP list, I believe, but he should be able to come back this week now. I would rather pick him up and stash him and see if he can emerge. I'd rather pick him up than Justice Hill. And I can only assume, I'll look. I mean, Keaton Mitchell's got to be 0% owned. He's got to be unowned almost fully. He is this ownership here? 2% owned in ESPN fantasy leagues. Rookie running back, super talented. He could be the Lightning to Gus Edwards' Thunder in 2 or 3 weeks. I think that would be a very, very easy thing to project. Justice Hill, I think, is a good player. 29% owned. Again, we're talking about upside. Are you picking up Justice Hill to play him this week? If so, then pick him up. If you're picking up Justice Hill to stash and see if he becomes something, I'd rather switch out Mitchell for Justice Hill. Take the sure thing if you need a bye week fill in. If you're looking for a stash, take the upside. At this point in the season, Freddie wants to know what's my outlook on Jonathan Taylor and Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall's getting healthier, which is good to see. Healthier, he gets more touches he's going to get. Obviously, a great player. His ceiling is capped at an RB2 this year because of the offense, because of the offensive line, because of Dalvin Cook. So I think more often than not this year, rest of season, I think more often than not, he's a flex with upside. As bad as that feels to say, I think he's a high-end flex, but I think he's a flex with upside. If he's your RB2, I wouldn't panic, but I'm not feeling great about that. Jonathan Taylor, and all we can do is speculate. Because truly, if Jim Irsay says one thing wrong to Jonathan Taylor, does this whole fiasco bullshit just start up again? Because Jonathan Taylor's been unpredictable to the point, obviously, I'm a Wisconsin sports fan, been around the Wisconsin team when he was there doing stuff. Like, I love Jonathan Taylor, incredible human being, incredibly smart human being, And he's been uncharacteristic of himself this entire preseason training camp. And it's because of that new agent, that bullshit MMA agent that he signed. He's terrible. Absolutely terrible. Jonathan Taylor is being a dick to like just the workers in the Colts building, talking about like chefs, talking about trainers, talking about people like that. So that's scary to me. Like, it's just super uncharacteristic of who Jonathan Taylor is as a person. I don't like it. And that's why I'm still hesitant on him. If he comes back and plays like Jonathan Taylor, he is a low-end RB1, high-end RB2. Again, Colts offense overall isn't amazing. Running back scarcity makes him a hot commodity. That offensive line for the Colts isn't incredible. Could we see them spell Taylor a little bit with Zach Moss? I think Zach Moss continues to have a role. He's earned that for sure. But yeah, I think Jonathan Taylor, low-end RB1, high-end RB2 more often than not. But he is a guy, again, I don't know if I can trade for him just because I'm so hesitant. It would be rolling the dice. It's a risk that could absolutely pay off. That could be a league-winning move to trade for Jonathan Taylor. But, boy, that situation's weird. I do think he plays out the rest of the year with the Colts, though. Like, meaning I don't think he plays for another team. If Jonathan Taylor twists an ankle and he wants to sit out the rest of the year, I think that would be something. I think he wants to manage his body. I think his goal truly is to get to the offseason healthy. And rightfully so. I mean, whatever. But I think that's his goal. You're not getting points for that. So that's why he's not an obvious RB1. I'm not saying he's going to be the record-breaking, dominating Jonathan Taylor that he was a couple years ago. But I don't think he's going to be as bad as he was last year either. Somewhere in the middle. Dash has Dak Prescott, and the passing is very safe because of their defense. And I'm 1-3, but it's a 10-team league. Who would you rather take next week as your quarterback? Dak, Goff, or Stroud? I'll start by saying tomorrow, Wednesday, is our ranking show. So I do my fantasy rankings and post them on flurrysports.org. I also will be joined by Luke tomorrow night here, wherever you're watching this. We'll be live Tuesday evening going over the rankings, comparing them with the consensus. I say that to say I haven't done my rankings yet. Your answer will be more clear then. You can also join the Fantasy Football by Committee Facebook group. They will be dropped in there as well. So my guess, though, let me bring up the entire schedule. I've been pretty down on Dak, so that's where I'm initially a little bit questioning. I just want to see who they all play. Where the hell are the Cowboys? Okay, so Dak plays the 49ers. That's tough. Goff and Stroud. Stroud plays the Falcons. Goff plays the Panthers. I'd rather go Goff out of the three, I would say. That's what I would do. Honestly, I think Dak might be third for me, given the matchup this week. He's not a guy I want to drop, but Dak hasn't been very good. Not at all. Vinny has Sam Laporta, Dallas Goedert. Should I trade Goddard for Kittle? That's interesting. Yes, I suppose. If you can do straight up, yes, I would rather have Kittle. I'm not sure if it's a trade that makes your team better. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, the past several weeks, I've been talking about how Sam Laporta very soon will be a sell high candidate. And it's getting very close to that point in the season where he is the best sell high candidate. So you could pick up Kittle and then be willing to shop Sam Laporta around. I don't hate that. That's probably what I would do. But if you are weak at another position, I would much rather trade Goddard or Sam Laporta and upgrade that other position. But yeah, if your rest of your team's solid, then sure, I'd rather have Kittle than Goddard rest of season. Okay. Other running backs to pick up. Trying to think. I don't really care about Breida. I mean, I suppose Jeff Wilson, but I don't really want to play that headache. If you're super desperate, deep league, Wilson's going to have weeks where he's super involved. I suppose you can do that. I don't mind Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby obviously hasn't had a massive role so far in Jacksonville, but it's a role that I expect to grow. He's 15% owned in ESPN fantasy leagues. Yeah, I mean, 12 carries on the year, 2 touchdowns. He's going to be that short yardage guy. But as the year rolls on, especially if Jacksonville locks up that division early, I could see them managing the workload of ETN a little bit. So I think he's a stash guy, but I think he's one of the better stashes among running backs. Latavius Murray is a desperation by week fill-in, I will call him. He has a week-to-week role against or with Buffalo. Going over to London this week, I could see Buffalo, playing it relatively safe. But yeah, you would have to be desperate. It would have to be like a 16 team, maybe a 14 team league. If you need a desperation bye-week fill-in, I think he can do the job for you, and you're praying he falls into the end zone for a touchdown. You're absolutely praying for it. Last running back I think I'll talk about, I don't think I'm missing anybody big. But the last running back I'll talk about, Elijah Mitchell, owned in about a little more than a third of ESPN fantasy leagues. Christian McCaffrey's been so good. So good. And last year he stayed healthy. So healthy. But if he continues to get 20, 25 touches per game, boy, he's going to break down. I don't care who you are. He's going to break down. Either Christian McCaffrey gets hurt and misses games and Elijah Mitchell's the RB1, or the 49ers are going to start to manage Christian McCaffrey a little bit and get Elijah Mitchell more involved. It's going to be one of the two. Either way, I think you can pick up Elijah Mitchell and he will turn into possibly a flex with upside. So I think he is a smart pickup. I would rather pick him up than Chase Tank Bigsby. I'd rather pick him up than, I can look at the trending players again. I think I would rather pick him up than Khalil Herbert. It's very close. Khalil Herbert can help you more right now, obviously. I'd rather pick him up than Ronnie Rivers. I don't get that one. I'd rather pick him up than Latavius Murray and a lot of the wide receivers who are trending. So check him out for sure. Cowbell. Very poor running back play in a 14 team. Who would you trade? Hurts, Keenan Allen, Javonte Williams, Zay Flowers. Okay, would you trade? Sorry, Hurts, Keenan Allen, Javonte Williams, Zay Flowers for Christian Watson, Tony Pollard, Amari Cooper, and Jordan Addison. If you have poor running back play, then you'd be upgrading Javonte to Tony Pollard. You'd be downgrading your quarterback. You'd be downgrading your wide receivers. Man, that's tough. I don't think I would do that trade. I want to make a move to upgrade my running back, but I wouldn't do that trade. That's a little too much. Dash, I jumped over you. Thing is with Goff, I was going to get him last week, but I don't like is the possible blowout of Carolina handing the ball over 100 times. 100%. I will say the way to attack Carolina is best to throw. So I do think they could struggle running the ball a little bit early. They're going to stick to the run, obviously. It's Detroit, and it makes sense. But that play action could be deadly. Very easily could see that 75-yard Jameson Williams play action touchdown. Welcome back. I think he'll be okay. And especially you're talking about bye week fill-in. Do I think he has top 5 upside? No. Do I think he's an essential lock? to finish between quarterback 7 and let's say 14, yes, that's where we're at. If you don't need a quarterback to win you a week, you just need a quarterback not to lose you a week. Jared Goff's one of the best guys. McAdoo, what's up? Is it time to give up on the Isaiah Hodgins project? Yes. I like him. I believe Oregon State product. I can't remember who he played for before the Giants, but I thought he looked really good wherever he was excited when he went there and started to play well last year. They just have too many guys that the front office has invested in. And just signing him, isn't an investment. They have too many guys. And on top of having too many guys, too many mouths to feed, they're also just not playing well, which is the worst part. That offensive line is, they should try Isaiah Hodgins at tackle. I think that's where he would fit best at the current moment and fill the biggest need. Cavalier, DeAndre Swift and Cooper Kupp, worth Stephon Diggs. I think that's relatively even. I would rather trade away. I would rather have Diggs, the Diggs side of this trade. He is the only sure bet to me. But I think it's an even trade, and I could see the other side, right? DeAndre Swift is coming on. You're betting on that continuing. I don't necessarily think that continues. And then Cooper Kupp, if he comes back and plays well, he could be equals to Stephon Diggs, right? But you're betting on his health. You're betting on Stafford's health. So I'd rather have Diggs, but I think that's an even trade. Cowbell, he had that trade earlier. He has Tyreek Hill as his other wide receiver. Good team. So his team would be Deshaun, Connor, Pollard, Amari Cooper, Tyreek Hill, Higbee, and Addison. I still think it's too much to give up. I think you can get more at the very least. Getting Addison is a nothing. That's a nothing burger. Having Higbee as your tight end, I think you can upgrade there. I understand wanting Pollard. Obviously, he's a top 5 guy rest of season, but I don't necessarily trust Deshaun Watson. I'd rather have Hurts than Watson. I'd rather have, who's the other wide receiver? Keenan Allen. Do a trade with Keenan Allen and Javonte Williams or something like that, but you got to get more. I'd rather if they're willing to do it, I'd rather do Keenan Allen, Javonte Williams for Tony Pollard and whatever throwaway player. It kind of hurts your wide receiver core, but I think I still would do that. I'm fine with selling Keenan Allen while he's healthy and just getting Tony Pollard in general, But overall, it feels like a panic trade when you get a bunch of players in a row like that, and it's too early to panic. Maybe not for everybody, but if you panic at this point, I think you're already writing off the season. Sorry, just checking a text there. Okay, wide receivers. There's a lot of wide receivers people want to add this week. That doesn't necessarily mean there's a lot of great wide receiver options, though. Quantity, not quality, we'll call it this week. Cavalier, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, stacking them. Is that a good idea? Sure. It's one of the better stacks in the league. I think I don't put much value in terms of stacks for season-long leagues. Stuff like that. Obviously for best ball, obviously for DFS, there's a very big, there's a direct correlation to winning, right? But in terms of season-long, it's not a big deal. I don't seek it out. I don't stray away from it, but that's one of the more safe stacks just because Stephon Diggs seems to get his pretty much every single week. And Josh Allen obviously is one of the best fantasy quarterbacks and he's healthy, which is a big deal. So good idea. Yes. In the fact that they're both great players. Also, who's more valuable, Swift or A-Chain? I think Swift. That's a great question. Let me put that on the screen just for people after the fact. I don't think either player are going to be consistent. I don't think their role is going to be consistent. That's the issue. But A-Chain, I think, is competing with more players. Obviously, is the more inexperienced of them. Swift is competing against, I wanted to say worse players. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think Swift's in the better offense. I think Swift's behind a better offensive line. And yeah, so I would rather go Swift. I think it's very close, though. Gordy, would you trade Eckler, Cup, and DK for Devontae, Rashad White, Josh Allen, and Hollywood Brown? I'm thin at quarterback right now with Burrow and Kirk. You're not thin. Kirk Cousins is one of the best fantasy quarterbacks in the league, and Joe Burrow, the only direction to go is up. I don't think you need to panic at quarterback. That's the last thing you need to do. Unless you're in a 2 quarterback league, then I understand hitting the panic button on Joe Burrow a little bit. But you're trading away Eckler, Cup, and DK for Devontae. No, I wouldn't do it. Now is not the time to trade Cup and Eckler. 1 quarterback. Yeah, you're good. You don't need to do that trade. I think Kirk Cousins is fine. And I think Joe Burrow eventually will start playing better. They need to sit him. He can't move his leg. They need to sit him. His stubbornness is probably going to cost them the season, to be honest. Do we have a streaming schedule? Loosely. So Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. Central, we are always live with the Fantasy Football Ranking Show. Immediately after, we do a Green Bay Packers podcast called Lombardi Sweep. Thursday, before Thursday Night Football, we have a start-sit show. And then this one, I've been doing late morning, early afternoon on Tuesdays, Fantasy Waiver show. Later today or early tomorrow as well, though, I'm going to be doing a fantasy buy low, sell high show. Talking about trades and stuff like that. People, sort of a fantasy football stock market sort of show. I'm going to be doing that. And then Sundays before lock, I occasionally go live then as well. They may start to get a little bit tougher with a new job. However, maybe other people will mix in as well. So Wednesday nights, always. Tuesday afternoons, early mornings, always. Thursday Night Football, right before it, we always do that. And then everything else in between, trying to do it. Otherwise, Fantasy Football by Committee, what you're watching right now, you can listen to it as an audio podcast. You can join the Fantasy Football by Committee Facebook group. The streams and articles from Flurry Sports, all of that live there. You can also ask questions to myself, others from the podcast, and others in the fantasy football community. Ask questions there, answer questions there. Fantasy Football by Committee is the place to stay up to date with all this stuff and to win your league. Great place. And Cavalier, how's my day going so far? So far, so good. I do appreciate that. TBD, early so far. Late start, and but so far, so good. It's always good to wake up on a Tuesday with all of your Monday night bets hitting and the ones that you needed to finish your week 4 parlay and stuff like that, those hit. So, bank account growing on the sports books, which is always a great feeling. Big Country, what's up? Welcome back. Burrow and Evans for Garrett and Jackson. That's really tough. I think I would want Garrett and Jackson. Like 1-to-1, I'd rather have Jackson than Burrow. I'm not sure if anyone would argue that. And then Evans versus Garrett. I think Zach Wilson's getting better. I think Garrett is great. I think Evans, injury things, I think are going to start to pop up for him. So yeah, I think I'd rather have Garrett and Jackson. Really good trade questions actually today. They've been really close. I like it. We got some smart people here. Would you trade Kyron Williams, A-Chain, and Kelsey for Tyreek Hill and Hawkinson? Yeah. Yes, I'd rather have Tyreek Hill and Hawkinson. And it opens up a roster spot for you to be a little bit flexible. Obviously, your running back situation needs to be good. That's the caveat here. As long as your running back situation's good, dare I say great, then this is an obvious great situation. This is a great trade in a vacuum. But if it handcuffs your running back spot, then different conversation we're having. Gordy, my team right now. Oh, this is the one with Kirk and Burrow, 10-teamer, 1 quarterback, right? He's got Damian Pierce, Khalil Herbert. Eckler's down. Eckler's going to come back right after the bye. He'll play, though. Then you got Puka, DK, Debo, and Flex. Tight end, Cole Kmet, Pat Freiermuth. Steelers defense, McPherson. Feels like my team is really shit. Other leagues 4-0. Hopefully Kupp and Eckler. Yeah, so, I mean, you're hoping... Oh, there's actually more down there. I just cut it off. Hopefully come back soon because I'm now 1-3. So Kupp should come back this week. Eckler's on bye. He should come back the week after that. I'm fine trading away Puka and Pat Freiermuth together to upgrade something. I don't mind that. However, having Puka and Kupp is great. If they're both healthy, they kind of eat into each other, and that kind of sucks. But if one of them goes down going forward, then you have to feel good about the other one, right? So I like that. However, I'm very willing to go Puka and Freiermuth for somebody. I'm willing to go Puka and Khalil Herbert to upgrade that running back spot. Even upgrading from Damian Pierce, Puka and Damian Pierce for a legit low-end RB1, high-end RB2. I'm fine with that as well. So your team's not shit. You got people to play with. You just need to get production from your quarterbacks, and you should. You should. McPherson's not an every week start, by the way. Feel free to cut your kicker. And what I do in almost all of my leagues, by the way, except for I have too much Brandon Aubrey this year just because, I hosted a USFL show, partied with Birmingham Stallions after that first championship win. Great time. So no Brandon Aubrey, former MLS kicker, great kicker. Knew he was going to be good. So he's a guy I'm not willing to cut. But almost always for my fantasy teams, I cut my kicker every single week and I stream them. But I drop them so I can pick up one of the better waiver wire pickups so nobody else can get them just to be a dick. I'll pick them up and maybe I'll just drop them on Sunday and then pick up my kicker. Or maybe I pick them up and I trade them. Like that gives you so much more valuable than just holding on to a kicker. So much more valuable. And since you have McPherson, who has been trash because that Bengals offense has been trash, you're in a position to do that. And I think that could help your team out legitimately. It's a strategy that not enough people do, to be honest. The country, my friend wanted to give Hill and 49ers defense for Evans, DK, and the Packers defense. Should I do it? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're getting Tyreek Hill, you have to take it. You have to take it. Have to take it. The other guys are going to be inconsistent. And Tyreek Hill, he's too good. He's too good. You got to get him right now. Did I miss anybody? Did we even talk about fantasy pickups at wide receiver? Let's just scroll down to less than 60% on ESPN, talk about a couple people. Weird that the Quentin Johnston and Josh Palmer thing came out exactly as we talked about last week, huh? It's almost as if we know something. We know a thing or two about a thing or two, despite the haters, eh? All we do is win fantasy leagues over here, though, so whatever. Romeo Doubs is one of the hotter pickups of the week. Romeo Doubs Packers. I know people in the Packers building. Obviously, we have the Packers show. Insider to the insiders here. Spoiler alert, been quoted as anonymous source on ESPN multiple times by Rob Domofsky. Shout out Domofsky. Fucking moron. But Romeo Doubs is the wide receiver 1 for Green Bay. Romeo Doubs is vastly more skilled than Christian Watson, and it's not close. Christian Watson's more athletic. He has the God-given gifts that Romeo Doubs doesn't have. But if Christian Watson isn't healthy, which he hasn't been to start the year, and he'll get hurt again, if he is not 100%, he is not good. Like that's it. That's it. Romeo Doubs is the guy I'd rather own there. That's not to say Christian Watson isn't valuable going forward. I think he'll score more touchdowns. I think he'll make more plays. But Romeo Doubs is a good player. And he plays the Raiders this week. He is very clearly a fine, if not good, wide receiver 3 value for you, obviously, in bye weeks. The issue is Jordan Love just can't throw the football. Like, mentally, I think he's got it. I think he's a good quarterback mentally. Physically, he's one of the least talented quarterbacks in the NFL. And anyone who wants to disagree with that disagrees with logic. You know, if you think gravity is fake, then maybe you think Jordan Love's a good quarterback, but that's it. Same thing, right? Like, he just can't throw. Sorry about it. Gordy, his team that he's 4-0 with. He has Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, Etienne, Montgomery, Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore, Kelsey Laporta, Kirk, Pickens. Yeah, you're stacked there. Stacked there. I mean, essentially, the beginning of this season, I feel like, oh, how's the team? 2 thumbs up. Like, you're doing good. Essentially, the beginning of this year is like, if you've dodged injuries, especially at running back, you got a good record. And if you didn't, then your record might be iffy, even though your team looks okay. So too many people are panicking than what they should be at the current moment. But yeah, your other team's going to get better too. There's easy ways to fix it. Snowball. Love the questions. Appreciate you all. Would you trade George Kittle for David Montgomery? I have Laporta on the bench. That's super interesting. That's super interesting. I think yes. I say this all the time, one way or another, talking about value, selling high, buying low. So I hate that you're buying high, right? David Montgomery's coming off of a monster performance. I hate that you're buying after that because his value's at an all-time high. But, so, I mean, if you're able to wait and you're able to get the win this week and just wait it out, I would rather trade for Montgomery next week, you know? But in a vacuum, I think I would do that because I think Montgomery's role is safe. He's very clearly the hammer in this offense. He's playing the Jamal Williams role. He's going to continue to get the goal line touches, and he's going to continue to get a lot of early down rushing work. He's extremely talented. He is a more talented runner than Jamal Williams, and people are wondering why Jamal Williams was getting all of the production last year, right? So I think he's safe. I would rather have Montgomery than Kittle, especially since you have Laporta. If you're able to wait, wait. If not, pull the trigger. Gordy, should I trade Laporta for maybe a better flex? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Laporta is great. I think the second half of the year for him is going to be tough. But if you can upgrade your starting lineup right now by trading Sam Laporta, do it. We said in training camp, he's going to be one of the best sell high candidates because he's going to start high. The tight end position is going to be a clusterfuck. And then his second half of the year is going to get hard. He's going to hit a rookie wall. Jameson Williams is going to come back, take some targets. All of these things. And all of these things, the stars are aligning. Everything's working out exactly as we predicted a couple months ago. So I can't go back on my word now. Like, yes, if you can trade Sam Laporta for a high, considering he's been a top 5 tight end, or close to that if he's not technically ranked top 5, then go ahead. Go ahead. He's also got low touchdown upside, which sucks, but I believe it's true. Big Country 4-0 with this team. Lamar Jackson, Raheem Mostert, Isaiah Pacheco, Garrett Wilson, Tyreek Hill, Puka Nacua, Jake Moody, Niners defense, benches Love, Reed, Warren, AJ Brown, Kittle. What should I change or improve on? I mean, after last week, it could be tough. Last week was the time to do it. I would have loved if you could trade high or sell high on Raheem Mostert. If you think you still can, I would love to do that. If you think you still can sell high in Puka Nacua, I would do that as well. But again, you don't need to panic. You don't need to do anything. Obviously, you're 4-0, so you're not panicking. But you don't need to make a move just to make a move. But the players you potentially could sell high on are Raheem Mostert, Isaiah Pacheco after his big performance, and Puka Nacua, all of which could see a significant downgrade over the next month. So don't necessarily sell them. Get some feelers, shop them around, and if you can sell high on any of them to improve your team, that's what I'm looking to do. So Gordy, instead of Laporta, should I sell high on Kelsey for a few big names instead of Laporta and use Laporta as the tight end one? Whichever you believe you can get best value for. Obviously, Kelsey's Kelsey, right? There's few more sure things in fantasy football than Travis Kelce. There is no better positional advantage in fantasy football than Travis Kelce. Me saying those two things, clip it if you need to send to your league mates. Those two things are real. Those two things could be reasons to keep Travis Kelce, or those two things could be reasons that you can puff him up to your league mate and sell high. So either way, it's true. Travis Kelce is the biggest positional advantage in fantasy football, despite him being, I believe, tight end 7 through the first month of the year. He's going to get better, obviously. I'm fine with either situation. Whichever you believe is the best value, shop them both, get some feelers out there, come back to us tomorrow night. We will be live right here, and I'll help you out with some trades. Or, better yet, if you want immediate feedback, join the Fantasy Football by Committee Facebook group, and you can drop all of your trade questions in there. That's what you should do, legitimately. That is a self-plug, and it's also something to help you. Win-win. Win-win-win, actually. Triple win. Ralph, what's up, Garner, by the way? Ralph asks, should I trade Ayuk for A-Chain? No. Unless you're desperate at running back, I don't want to trade away Ayuk for a running back that's about to be in a 3-headed monster backfield behind a middle of the road at best offensive line. We also tend to forget with Miami. Every year, I don't get it. We talk about running backs get better when it's cold. Okay. So we're talking about some players getting an advantage towards the end of the year, right? We talk about Lambeau Field, Aaron Rodgers for all those years. So good later in the year. Snow starts falling, starts to get colder, yada, yada. Miami is on the flip side of that. Miami's advantage is early in the year. People go down to Miami where it's hot as fucking shit, humid as hell, and they run around them. They're used to it. They fucking race around them. As we've seen at the beginning of this year, we saw it last year, we saw it the year before that. We always forget this. Miami's home field advantage, Miami's climate advantage, whatever you want to call it, is always front loaded. It's always the beginning of the year. They always start hot, literally and, record wise. So Miami's going to start to trail off. Like they always do this. So, unless their name is Tyreek Hill, there really isn't a Miami Dolphin I'm looking to trade for. Tyreek Hill is his own thing. He's too good. Trade for Tyreek. The rest of them, and I guess if you're a betting man, woman, I don't hate, rest of season. I'm downgrading Miami the rest of the season from this point forward. Are they still going to be a good team? Are they still one of the best teams in the NFL? Yes to both. But they're not going to be as dominant. No chance. I guess we should talk about Jameson Williams again quickly for wide receiver pickups. 16% ownership in ESPN fantasy leagues. Jameson Williams suspension reduced by 2 games, which means he's eligible to come back this week. Health-wise, all signs point to him being healthy enough to come back. But if he doesn't score from 30 yards out, I don't think Jameson Williams scores. He is a NFL player who has one catch in 5 or 6 games. 9 targets, 1 catch. The 1 catch was a touchdown. 40 plus yards, I believe. I think he is a sell high candidate if you get him. However, if you're looking for a stash, I mean, there's no better stash amongst wide receivers right now than Jameson Williams. I'm picking him up over Marvin Mims. I'm picking him up over Rashee Rice, over Romeo Doubs, over a lot of these guys. He was dominant in college. He was so good in college. Theoretically, he could be dominant opposite of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like if he's getting secondary coverage, talking like cornerback 2 coverage, he should be really good. He should be really good. This week's a good matchup against the Panthers. It could be a coming out party for him. He plays at home. I think he might be a little bit better on the turf going forward as well. But yeah, Jameson Williams, I think is a sell high candidate. If he comes back and he has a huge play, big touchdown this week, definitely a sell high candidate. However, he's also a great stash candidate. So for sure needs to be owned no matter what, whether you're picking him up to sell him or picking him up to see if he can emerge as a trustworthy player. Regardless, Jameson Williams needs to be owned. Probably should be the number 2 pickup of the week. Michael Wilson, like I said, I talked him up in preseason a shit ton. I love him. He's a great player. He's the 3rd most picked up player on Sleeper Fantasy, rookie wide receiver for the Cardinals. I think he's legit. I don't think his production's fake. I don't think anything like that. But Jameson Williams is a better pickup than he is. His upside is capped by the fact that he plays for the Cardinals. Ralph asks, he has Etienne, Madison, Kyron Williams as running backs, and the bench is Tyler Algier. I'm 4-0. Should I hold on? Yeah. I mean, you can shop those guys, but like, I'm not looking to move Etienne. I don't think I'm not interested in moving Algier, right? Like the only way his value goes is up, and that's if Bijan Robinson gets hurt. Not wishing for injury, but that would make him a great player. I don't think I'm shopping Kyron Williams. I will say I think Zach Evans could come on at the end of the year. I think he's really talented, but he hasn't even been active. So at this point, like, we don't need to project Kyron Williams falls off. So I'm not looking to trade him. Alexander Madison's the only guy I'm looking to possibly get some feelers on. If people think he is a low-end RB1, high-end RB2, and you can get that kind of value for him, I think pull the trigger. But don't trade just to make a trade. You got some healthy running backs. Let's celebrate it all the way to a fantasy championship. Max has Amon-Ra, Alvin Kamara, Alexander Madison. Oh, it's a trade. Sorry. Amon-Ra, Kamara, Madison for Saquon Barkley, Puka Nacua, Javonte Williams. I would rather have the Amon-Ra side. I don't love Alvin Kamara for fantasy for all the reasons we've talked about a million times. I don't think his touchdown upside is very high, and running ability is a little bit overrated. But PPR wise, it's in 0 PPR, so that hurts you obviously. But the Javonte Williams injury is tough. That hip flexor thing I think is going to be nagging for the next month at least. Puka's value goes down with Kupp coming back. Saquon Barkley already hurt. The best player in this trade is Amon-Ra. I don't think that's close. And yeah, you got to keep it. You got to keep those guys. You can get better. You can get more rather. Garner, Jonnu Smith, or Noah Gray. Jonnu Smith. Obviously, people are hesitant on him because he's the tight end 2 technically in Atlanta, but Falcons want to run the football. He's a drastically better blocker, so he's always on the field. And if you're always on the field, opportunity leads to productivity. That's why he's getting some targets, looking good. And on top of that, they're throwing screens to him. Like, they like his athletic ability enough to get him the ball in open space. Should they be doing that to Kyle Pitts? Probably, but they're not. So Jonnu Smith, I think, is safe, as weird as it sounds. Should I trade Mostert for Tua? If you're good at running back, then sure. I think you can get more than Tua, though. Just because running back, like the scarcity of that position is kind of crazy at the current moment. Obviously, it's dwindling by the day. So I think you can get more for Tua if you're panicking because you have no good quarterback and you're stacked at running back, then sure. The guy I'm deciding with, he says, I'm the guy deciding between Goff, Dak, and CJ. No, then I don't think I would. I don't think Tua is that big of an upgrade from Goff, is essentially the question. Would I rather have Goff and Mostert, or would I rather have Tua? And I think I'd rather have Goff and Mostert. I'm still looking to trade Mostert if possible, but yeah. I don't think I'm trading for Tua with that. Amon-Ra is better than Saquon 0 PPR, if that's technically your question. I think. It's just health. We've seen how terrible that Giants offensive line is. And if Saquon Barkley is going to come back and just get his shit rocked over and over and over, then I don't think he's going to be healthy for the long term. It's not a bad trade overall. It's just I'm not trading for Javonte Williams and Puka right now. Like, those two are almost irrelevant for me. Puka is going to see a downgrade for sure. Javonte Williams is seeing a downgrade for sure. So if you can, I don't hate trading away Amon-Ra, Kamara, and Madison, but you got to get more. Got to get a lot more. And no problem, Garner. Any other wide receivers to talk about? I feel like I've been so scatterbrained. Wan'Dale Robinson, I talked about him a little bit earlier. I think he's the most talented pass catcher on the Giants. They're willing to use him as a rusher a little bit as well. Obviously, he came back in week 3 against the Niners. Short week for the Giants. He played only 22% of the snaps, saw 5 targets, so pretty good usage compared to his snap count, obviously. Last night, Giants got their dick kicked in by the Seahawks, but he played 64% of the snaps. Again, incredibly talented. I really like him. Second-year guy. They drafted him, I believe, second round, so they have like a lot invested in him. He saw 6 targets, saw 64% of the snaps. Going forward, they play the Dolphins, the Bills, Washington, the Jets, the Raiders. They have some good matchups there. I don't think he necessarily will see cornerback 1 coverage either. I don't think he will at all, actually. So, like, when I talk about the Jets and talk about the Dolphins, people like that, like, we're grading their secondary and tertiary coverage guys. And I think Wan'Dale Robinson can take advantage of them. He's also a guy who can be utilized quite a bit underneath. And given how shitty that Giants offensive line is playing, they should be wanting to get the ball out of Daniel Jones's hands very quickly. And Wan'Dale Robinson could be a very big beneficiary of that. So PPR league is probably where he would be best. But he could very quickly emerge as a wide receiver 3 for you. He's still a wide receiver 4 probably at the current moment. I'm not itching to get him. Well, I am itching to get him in my lineup, but I'm not hoping to pick him up and start him immediately this week. He's more of a stash than an immediate fill-in, but I do like Wan'Dale Robinson quite a bit. I do. I also like Curtis Samuel. He's just quietly a good performer. He is what? He's like wide receiver 35 last year. Like he just performs. If he's healthy, he's going to continue to perform for the Commanders. I think he was the guy who fell on the touchdown, which helped his fantasy performance on Sunday. But still, I mean, target-wise, 5, 3, 4, 8. Yardage-wise, 54, 19, 54, 51. deep leagues, look for him. He should be pretty steady. Garner, are we going to see Levis get an opportunity this year? From everything I hear, it sounds like Willis is ahead of him in the pecking order. And it's not like Willis is a guy, Willis. It's not like he is an old guy that they haven't, or that they know what he is, right? Like he's a second-year quarterback who really didn't get much time last year. I feel like they moved on from him too quickly. He impressed in training camp. I think there's a strong chance we see him this year. I don't know if we'll see Levis. And I think that's fair, just because that Titans offensive line's another one who's just terrible. Like, that's why I think we see one of those young guys. Like, Tannehill, I think, is playing as good as he can while getting his shit rocked all the time. And eventually he's just going to get hurt. And one of these other guys are going to go in there. It makes more sense to pick the slightly older guy, to pick the guy who's more mobile, to pick the guy, again, theoretically, what the new general manager thinks isn't the future. Like, we can throw him out there. Do they have more invested in Levis than him being a second rounder? I mean, Levis was a second rounder. Willis, I believe, was a third rounder. It's pretty close. It's pretty close, but I think it makes more sense to not have Levis in there and let him develop instead of putting him in there behind a terrible offensive line and ruining him. Whereas Willis, it sounds shitty, but they kind of already started to ruin him last year. He's been playing better in training camp, though, and he's more mobile. So if there is something they could do behind a bad offensive line, it feels like the more mobile guy could be the answer. So I do think we see Willis before Levis, assuming it's this year. But if we're talking who would I have more confidence in being the Titans starting quarterback next year, then my answer is probably Levis if I'm picking between those two. It's a weird situation, but I don't think they want to play Levis this year whatsoever. Dash has Madison, Ramondre, and Brian Robinson at running back, and starting Pollard and Henry. And Kyron, what was the trade? You're stacked at running back. Whatever. Oh, should I trade Mostert for Tua? I mean, yeah, you are stacked, eh? Again, I think you can get more, but given that situation, I'm willing to, and you have Kyron Williams. I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to do that trade then. I would still try to get more, even if you have to throw in another player and just upgrade that other player, essentially. But, yeah, go ahead and do that. Your running back room is admirable, to say the least. Okay, I mean, we kind of talked about wide receivers. It's been so fucking scattered. Been hour 20 we're on. I like the questions, though. I'd rather answer your guys' questions than to just simply read off who the best pickups are. But let's talk about tight ends quickly and fire any more questions you have. Then I'll answer those questions before getting off. But tight end pickups, obviously, we read on Sleeper the most picked up players. Jonnu Smith is the 5th most picked up player, so he's a hot tight end pickup. And Jake Ferguson's the 6th most. Jonnu Smith, like I just said, like he is the blocker. Falcons want to run the football. Jonnu Smith's going to be out there to block. And he's also, oh, by the way, very athletic. And they traded for him, so obviously they want him. But he's going to be on the field for his blocking capabilities, and then he's going to see targets since he's on the field. Last 3 weeks, 6, 8, and 6 for targets. Receptions, 4, 5, 6. And then his yardage, 47, 37, and then a whopping 95 last week. Do I think he is a consistent double-digit fantasy producer? No. But I do think projecting him around that 8-point mark could be pretty safe. And, you know, maybe eventually he catches a touchdown. I think his touchdown upside is relatively low. But if you're just looking for a safe floor for a tight end, I think Jonnu Smith is a good option. Jake Ferguson on Wisconsin. He's got a relatively good hold, I feel, on that tight end spot. It's still a little bit of a committee approach there for them. I mean, we can just see that with the snaps. He started the year 72% of the snaps, then 60, 69, 56. He's gotten 7 targets in 3 of the 4 games, though. Last week was his best performance because he caught all 7 of those targets for 77 yards. He also got a touchdown in week 2. He's the tight end to own in Dallas for sure. I think he is a startable, very low end tight end 1 going forward. I don't necessarily want to start him this week against the Niners. But yeah, he's a guy you can pick up. Obviously, if you've been starting Pat Freiermuth, if you somehow are still starting Kyle Pitts, something like that, I think you can pick up Jake Ferguson and start them over those people. Obviously, Freiermuth is injured now. But yeah, he's valuable enough for that. I think Logan Thomas is another deep league pickup at tight end, but I think he's going to be used. He's got a pretty good grasp on that tight end spot in Washington when he's healthy, and he's currently healthy. This week, Washington plays Chicago. I expect Washington to be in scoring position, decent amount. And if they're in scoring position, he is going to be the wide receiver or the receiving target in the red zone, I can only assume. So, yeah. Deep league guy, but I like him. Let's look at some other tight ends that are owned in other 60% of leagues. Zach Ertz is still under 60%. You can go pick him up. Hunter Henry is still under 60%. You can go pick him up. I like them both more than Dalton Schultz, who people are still rolling with. I like them over Gerald Everett, who some people are rolling with, over Dawson Knox. I like him over Dalton Kincaid. Dallas Goedert's been tough. He just hasn't really been producing. He's kind of been forgotten about in that offense a little bit. I'm not hitting the panic button on him. I think I'm still rolling him out there in the starting lineup. But preseason tight end ones who you don't need to start at this current moment. You don't need to start Darren Waller. Don't start Kyle Pitts. Don't start Pat Freiermuth. I probably don't start David Njoku. I know he's on bye this week, but don't start him going forward until he produces. And don't start Dalton Schultz. There's decent options out there. Go ahead and get them. Noah Fant on bye this week. He's been decent as well. Yardage the past 3 weeks, 56, 41, 63. Question mark going into this weekend or going into Monday night because of the injury, but now he has a bye week to get healthy. I like him. And then Jelani Woods, 6'7", 6'8" monster for the Colts. They've been using Kylan Granson as a receiver. He, I believe, can come back off IR this week. Yes. So he is a guy to pick up and stash and see. He had a couple weeks last year where they used him. Like, they barely used him last year, but he had a couple weeks where they did use him and he just caught touchdowns. Obviously at 6'7", 6'8", he's going to be a red zone monster, but he's also extremely athletic. He can move bodies in the running game. I think he could very quickly become a serious threat amongst fantasy tight ends. I don't know why Anthony Richardson wouldn't throw it to him, or Gardner Minshew if Minshew has to get put back in there because of a Richardson injury. So if you're asking for a stash at tight end this week, I think it's Jelani Woods. If you're looking for a bye week fill-in or just someone you want to start for sure this week, I think it's Jonnu Smith or Hunter Henry if he's somehow available, or Zach Ertz if he's somehow available. Okay, let's answer questions, then get out of here. Dash, start here. What do I think about Madison rest of season? I think he's going to be relatively inconsistent. I don't think that Vikings offensive line's amazing. Darisaw, I think, is back in the lineup and healthy enough to play. He's legit. He's very good. at left tackle. But I think the health of the offensive line is a big deal for Madison. I don't think he's good enough to overcome a bad offensive line. I think he's probably, a mid-range RB2 going forward rest of season. I don't foresee Cam Akers being a massive threat to him. They will take a hot hand approach if Madison's getting stood up at the line, and they put in Cam Akers the next drive and he busts a couple runs. They'll roll with Cam Akers. That's what they're going to do. But I think Madison's going to get the first shot essentially every single game. So mid-range RB2 going forward. Draco juiced. Interesting. Should I trade Stephon Diggs, Dameon Pierce, and Purdy for Joe Mixon, Jacoby Myers, Kirk, and Michael Thomas? Wow. I think no. I'm assuming. Let me scroll down just to see if you just said anything else. Okay. I'm assuming you need a running back. That's why you're wanting to do this trade, right? Yeah, because you're going for Mixon. I wouldn't do it. Diggs is very clearly the best player in the trade. No disputes by anyone, I assume. And Purdy's getting the job done for you. So the question is Dameon Pierce. I think you can upgrade better than going to Joe Mixon. So no, I wouldn't do that trade. Speak has a trade. Got offered Saquon Barkley and Garrett Wilson for Michael Pittman, Sam Laporta, and one of Jerome Ford, Ty Montgomery, or David Montgomery probably, and ETN. How is ETN getting thrown with Jerome Ford? Like you get to pick? If you get to pick one of those three, and it's not like a fucking lottery out of the hat thing, because Jerome Ford, get him out of here. But okay, so you would be getting Saquon Barkley and Garrett Wilson. No, I'm not doing that trade. You can get more. You can get more for Laporta right now. Saquon Barkley is getting ready to come back. Who knows how good he's going to be? We've seen him a couple years ago behind a terrible offensive line. He just wasn't very good. So could be a replay of that. And Garrett Wilson's not a guy I need to trade for right now. You have Pittman, who's been pretty good. You got Laporta, who's been very good. And then you have running backs who are good. Montgomery and ETN are going to be fine. I'm fine getting rid of Ford, but I think you're fine. Dash wants to get rid of Mostert just in case he has another bad week and nobody wants him at all. For sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a scenario where A-Chain and Jeff Wilson both play well this week and Mostert does nothing. And then people wake up and are like, oh, this is what this backfield is, right? So, yeah, you need to get rid of Mostert. Have to do it. Trixie on Twitch. I just traded Swift for Richardson. My quarterback was Goff. My running backs were Aaron Jones, Saquon, Najee, and Madison. I like that. You're rolling the dice. I mean, you would be rolling the dice rolling with Swift too. But you're rolling the dice on Richardson just because health-wise, man. Like, he finally completed his first NFL game this week. Congrats to you, Anthony Richardson. He's been great. But with the way he plays and injury issues, it's concerning. But he is certainly an upgrade at quarterback for you. He is, if he stays healthy, he's borderline top 5 the rest of the way. So, yeah, I like that. And your running backs are fine. So, I like that trade. Any other last-second questions while I do my plugs here? Let me know. If there's no more questions, then we will be back. I'll be back either later today or more likely tomorrow around the same time doing a buy low, sell high stream. Talking about players you can trade for or away. We will be doing that and obviously answering a bunch more of your guys' questions. However, if you want to ask questions while we are not on air, please join the Fantasy Football by Committee Facebook group. There you can ask questions to me. You can ask questions to other people you see on the show, and you can ask questions to the rest of the community over there as well. Ask questions or answer questions. If you're a fantasy writer, definitely throw your articles in there, share them with the rest of the community. You can see our articles on there from Flurry Sports. My rankings will be posted in there tomorrow. You'll see the streams dropped in there as well. Lots of good stuff over there. Fantasy Football by Committee Facebook group. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's a link to the group in the description below, so definitely go join that. And feel like there's something else, but maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this. If you're watching this and want to catch this as an audio podcast, so you don't need to be staring at my face or being able to listen to this maybe in the car on your way to work. Again, Fantasy Football by Committee. It's a podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, go do that as well. If you are in need of a fantasy football award, whether it be for the winner or for the loser, or if you want some magnetic wall art, anything like that, go to trophysmack.com. Use the promo code Flurry, Flurry. If you order a trophy, you get a free championship ring with it when you use the promo code. That's a $60 value. Trophysmack.com. They're the most customizable fantasy awards on the market. They got a deal with Mark Cuban on Shark Tank. They are the real deal. Amazing products. So go to trophysmack.com. You can get trophies, championship rings. You can get champ chains, like you see maybe a little bit on like sidelines in college football after an interception, stuff like that. You can get championship belts, which are incredible. May need to be getting one for the show here pretty soon. So yeah, trophysmack.com. Promo code Flurry, Flurry. Check out everything else on flurrysports.org. And I appreciate you all for hanging out with me, asking questions, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.